Welcome back to the Intention Podcast with Tami Palmer, a show where we unpack what it truly means to live life with intention. Today, we're talking about a very big topic, the rise of the matriarchy. To help us dive into this topic, I've invited my business collaboration partner, Kim Kleeman, to join me in this topic. Kim builds businesses and brands. She is the founder of Accelerate Successfully, CEO of the 100-year-old family commercial bakery, Simon Brothers Bakery, co-founder of the Professional Moms Community Network, connecting more than 12,000 women, and co-founder of the Inner Circle Business Network. Kim helps entrepreneurs and leaders scale their companies while building powerful communities. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tami. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so fun. We were chatting and I'm like, I got to get you on the podcast. There's so many different topics we could talk about. And what's the thing we're going to talk about? Because we do collaborate a lot. And you were like, the matriarchy, duh. And I said, yes. And then we had the brilliance to record this on International Women's Day, having just come off of a great International Women's Day luncheon that we put on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm still riding high from that. It was an amazing amount of energy coming off of just, a movement that started. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it really is. We had 120 women at a facility called the Glen Club in Glenview, Illinois, a luncheon. And then we featured a panel discussion of 4 of our international women that are members of our larger community. And we'll explain what our community is during the show. But just hearing them talk and share their stories, it was really such an inspiring day for all the attendees.
We heard so many things on the way out the door. People were literally like, strangers were hugging hello and goodbye. Like, I don't know you, but it just was, you could feel something really special. So, it was a great way to celebrate this important holiday.
Yes. And that word we learned from Natalia Duarte, and see if I can remember it right. Is it apapacho?
Yeah, that's how I remember it.
I think that's what it is, which is like my new favorite word. We were talking about words that exist in other languages that don't have an English equivalent. And she taught us this word, which is basically like a hug with soul. And that's what the whole room felt like.
It really
did. I just love that.
It really did.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So we have quite a journey together. We've known each other for 7 years, something like that.
7, yeah.
What happens is you get into the COVID years and everything just becomes a blur.
I know. I know.
Trying to mark time before.
Yeah. I was like, I know I met you before that.
Right.
And I think it was a few years before that. And I think you said it on stage at the event. You said 10 years ago in 2017, and I snapped my head and looked at you like, oh my gosh, that's right. 2017 is 10 years ago.
Well, 9 is 2026, but 2026, yeah, it's a lot of years.
Yeah.
I try and do it by how many Inner Circle summits I attended before COVID. That's where I try and track, but even that's a little confusing.
I was going to say, how many do you track?
I don't know. I don't know. So I came to Kim. So it's a fun story. I had connected with her sister, Joy Poley, and we were having coffee and she said, oh my gosh, you've got to meet my sister, Kim. You guys are going to hit it off. And I said, okay, I'm up for meeting just about anybody. So Kim and I met, and yes, it was an instantaneous connection. I actually hired Kim to be my business coach. And that's where our relationship started. I joined her networking group, the Inner Circle, as a way to expand my local network, especially because I was still fairly newish to Chicago, maybe 5 years or so in at that point. And at one point, I was describing how I was going to lead women's retreats. And she was going to help me figure out the finances to finally get this off the ground. And as we're looking at the pricing and the concepts, she leans over and says, oh, yeah, and I'm coming.
For sure.
I said, wait, what? And she said, no, I'm coming on your retreat. And it was just kind of blew my mind. but
I was
that's
like,
where it all started.
I will be a paying attendee, please, and thank
Yes,
you.
yes. And so we started collab. First she would attend to my retreats, and then move to becoming a facilitator and collaboration partner. Um, and we've been on quite a journey since. We shifted quickly into friends. We're concert buddies. We go to book signings together, and it's a real beautiful thing when you can have a working friendship of that level and have so many crossovers in interests and passions.
Yeah, it was really easy, and I think our skill sets and our strengths are very complementary, and so I think that I noticed that every time that we took another step into a collaboration or a friendship step or a partnership step, traveling together, we were able to really do it even when things went wrong, even when things went right. We just both kind of were a similar vibe, and that's a big deal at
Yeah.
50 years old.
Yes, it is. I remember like, oh, we travel well together. Okay, check. That's a really good thing to
Check,
know.
check, check, check.
Um, and this came up a little bit on the last episode I recorded where we got into the whole concept of establishing friendships. And I am going to, at some point I'm going to do an episode that's just completely dedicated to the concept of friendship.
I love
But
that.
I think there's so much intention that we
Yeah.
can put into who we invest time in, how we invest time. And maybe my topic of friendship will just mostly be a little bit in every episode talking to my friends as I do this podcast. But that's something about what this is when you think about intentional relationships, ours is very much an intentional relationship,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And we care about it. And we put a lot of
Yes.
time and effort and thought into it, and we check in, and we don't really want anything to disrupt that. No one, no thing, and that's because you and I have also, with a lot of intentionality, looked at the way we collaborate together, whether it's through astrology or strengths finders or just like really leaning in and understanding how we best work, or when we need to step out and we need the other person to lean in. And I think that's
Yes.
been a really interesting piece of this, which is that, like, why wouldn't we do business together? Because we found that those things were really easy. Like, what could we do? We might find some exponential growth if we lean into that, which I think is what we
Right.
both agreed was important.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the most fun things we've done together in our friendship is had Eric, who some of you met on my astrology episode a few times ago, do a compilation chart between our two charts of
Yeah.
how do we interact together, how do we complement each other. And the fascinating thing is neither one of us have a ton of earth in our chart on our own, but when you put it together it was like all earth, and I thought, wow, so we really can manifest things together that we can't do individually.
Yeah.
And that was really eye-opening.
Yeah. I've seen it. I witnessed it before we were told it, right?
Right.
Or saw it in those charts, which Eric was great with. Then he was so excited. He was like, "This is great." We're like, "It is." But it really was that we were already seeing the things that we did together were easier. They went faster. They were more profitable. They just were better
Yeah.
for us. And so that part of business, when it's easy, like you don't feel exhausted ever after all the interactions, that's really important because you can keep going on that. And you and I get inspired off of each other all the time.
Yes.
I was inspired this morning. I was thinking a lot about our event and thinking a lot about what we're building. And, on our regular Monday morning meeting, I will share my agenda of items that got inspired by that.
I love it. And in our relationship, you are definitely the visionary and I am the implementer. And I think we all need those. Or I'm the one that listens to the vision and say, okay, but tweak, tweak,
Hmm.
tweak, tweak. Okay, now we run with that.
Yeah. And you
Um,
even say, no, we're not doing that. And,
yes, I do say no sometimes.
and I totally am fine with that because I'm an idea generator. So
Right.
it's no skin off my back. I'm not particularly attached to anything,
which is helpful.
Like, no,
So,
okay.
yeah. So I thought where we would take this conversation, because we really want to dive into the matriarchy. This is about the rise of the matriarchy. What is the matriarchy? What is the patriarchy? Before we go there, let's explain what the women's group is that we have founded, that we're growing, so people understand why we're the ones talking about this. And
Yeah.
when we reference things like it's a movement, not just a luncheon, what do we mean by that? So, share a little bit about, or do I start with it? I guess either one of us can. A little bit of the Professional Moms Community Network. So I'll have
Well,
you
why
go
don't
because
I
we're
tell you?
co-creating
Okay,
it.
why don't I tell the story in a nice little
Okay,
secret and you can add into it. But when
perfect.
I met you and we did have this business coaching relationship, right away I saw that one of the assets you had was that you had built this great Facebook group. It was your community group. You knew a lot of women and a lot of businesses. And I asked you, like, what are you doing with that? And you had some admins and people that you partnered with, and you're like, no, I don't want to monetize that. That's, that's my heart. That's like,
Mhm.
I'm raising my family in this community. And it's not like I was looking to be like, let's get all the money. But when you're looking at somebody's business, you are looking at the different aspects of their assets and what they have to offer. Fast forward that I raised my kids in a neighboring town and I was going to be moving. I knew I was going to move out of that town. And my brother, sister, my parents all still live there. And my youngest sister, I really wanted to know everybody that I knew. So I asked you, like, do you mind if I kind of copy what you did with your Facebook group? And I think you had copied something of mine, maybe. And we were kind of just like throwing, and like, we were just kind
Mhm.
of like, hey, can I copy you? Can I copy you? And
Sure.
we were finally like, let's just start collaborating. It's not copying. We're just of the same mindset. And the Glenview Northbrook Professional Moms Group grew pretty quickly, but I struggled with organization. I am the visionary. I'm already on to like how to do the next thing. And so my sister Joy is my great partner, co-founder in that because one, she could meet all the women, two, she could run it. But then what we saw was that the other women that I was coaching, they also lived in communities and it felt like it could be a moneymaker. I think we had figured out by that point that you were doing some ticketed events and you were starting to get some sponsorships and we
Mhm.
started to see something move. And let me just say, the women in your Park Ridge Professional Moms group are like no other. It's a very, very special group that you can't really replicate. They're all very engaged. They all will spend money. They all will help each other. And during the pandemic, one of my favorite places to visit was the block in downtown Park Ridge of all female business owners coming up with super creative ways to survive at a difficult time. And I was
Mhm.
throwing money at those and helping women. And I was realizing that like your community was my community and my community was your community. And that was really cool. So when we started to show this to a few other people and they started to grow their groups, we were like, huh. And I remember I pitched to you a couple of times, like maybe we do a bigger thing, and you were like, no, I want to do my own thing, and I was like, that's fine. And then I started partnering with some of the other ones because they were my clients too. I was showing them how to put on events, and then we put on some really good events that like basically blew the brand bigger. And you and I needed to figure it out. And so we were on our way to one of our retreats and I was driving up the mountain in Colorado, and we have very deep chats when we do this. In fact, I think it's one of the spaces we hold sacred is like, let's drive up and down the mountain together and have that time. Um, and so I just said to you, hey, there's this movement. And because I am a visionary, a lot of times I can see a wave of energy, of movement, of opportunity coming or is there that other people don't necessarily see. And I just said to you, this is going to happen with or without you. And we need to get our arms around it. And if we do, this is really powerful because there's something here. And you were like, well, what would it look like? And I was like, I don't know, I'll throw out some ideas. And you were like, no, yes, no. But that whole retreat weekend, I think, the magic of that weekend and retreat was that you and I just had time together to continue to play ideas off of each other, sleep on it, formulate, ideate, create. And PMCN, which, we couldn't get the acronym right for a while, but, Professional Moms Community Network, PMCN, was born. And luckily, I have a back end of a business where I have a great director of marketing, I have a finance person. We were kind of able to get that up and running fairly quickly and then throw the idea out, which amazingly, the original moms jumped in on, and there was the first class of moms that jumped in on it. And suddenly we were off to the races.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a journey. So, yeah. So, just to fill in a couple of spots on that, I started the Park Ridge chapter when my daughter was in kindergarten, looking for who are the other moms in my community. I need friends. And I'm thinking that these moms need each other. Right. And so we all came together and it grew. And you're right. There is a magic with that core group. One, because it's been around for 12 years and it's just
Yeah.
over time, it takes time to build community. Um, but I did and I continue to put a lot of intention into the group to grow it and to curate the content. And then when we decided to go big with the PMCN and start adding chapters, which we're now up to 12 across Chicago and one in
Yeah.
Denver, um, it was really with finding women that are of like mind, because there is an authentic vibe that you find in our group that is very unique. And I think it starts because of the intentionality we have in what we're building, and that it is, in a lot of ways, a movement of connecting and empowering the working moms. I love this concept of the economy of women. And, you're always a big fan of reminding women to buy from each other, to pay full price, and to truly support each other and to grow friendships and have fun along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because I have been networking a long time in business, and I've been in a lot of rooms where it's mostly male CEOs and myself, or just heavily male, worlds that I've done business in. And there's not a lot of talk about bartering or favors. And it's not that those things don't go on, but it is that men understand that each man in the room needs to be the provider and the protector, and they need to be the one that needs to be the earner. And so a lot of their mindset is around earning and focused on that. But when you get into a room of women, that's not at all the focus. The
Mm-hmm.
focus is, are you okay, and are your relationships good, and is your family intact, and how can we support you during tough times? And in fact, I'd say in the women's groups, there's a lot more vulnerability about that, which makes us all want to help each other. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't help one another, but it should not go to the side of the fact that we as women, if we're going to close that gap of the 75 cents or 88 cents, wherever it is on the dollar right now,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going backwards right now.
Probably.
Um, uh, that we really are mindful about whether or not somebody needs a discount. And I see this all over the place. Women are discounting themselves in many different ways, and I just have felt like I better speak up about it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a financial advisor, I'm not the banker, but I am the business coach who's saying not only know your worth, but sell your worth and charge your worth and accept your worth. Um, and that means you don't start from scratch every time, that you try something new, because you already are a top level masterclass professional. You don't need to go back to $20 an hour, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to start a new transition or pivot. So there's all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of stuff in there for women that we're speaking to at these groups to just remind women, that it's a mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and we're shifting a mindset, and we partner with all kinds of people to help do that.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's so important. And so for those listening, the PMCN are, right now they exist as mostly Facebook groups. And we do have in-person meetups for every chapter. And each chapter has a email list. They have sponsors of the month. They have events every month, ticketed or free, depending on what's going on. The PMCN, the larger group, has two big luncheons every year: International Women's Day, and then in the fall, American Business Women's Day. And there's no fee to join, right? Anybody can join. There's fees if you go to a ticketed event, but it's a real low barrier. So if you are listening and you're a woman who's seeking community, definitely in the Chicagoland area, reach out to us. We can probably plug you into an existing one. And if you're not in Chicago, or if you're not in an area that currently has a group, we can definitely talk about how to get one started. It is a little bit of a franchise model in a way of you buying into the brand and to the support network that we've created, but not anywhere near franchisee like a very corporate structure. I get very nervous to use that word, but it's a word that people understand.
Well, what I think we've done is we've created a revenue model that makes sense for women to step into.
Yes.
And on the back end of it, we really are pointing to building up some skills that no matter what you do are important skills to know as a business owner. And that's sales and marketing and, top line growth.
Yes.
And so we really are having impact already in the economy of women, and we know this because bigger brands are paying attention.
Yes. Yes. We're
Right.
starting to have those conversations with bigger brands, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And other, like, we had the mayor of Skokie at our luncheon, and she was acknowledging the significance of the group and how she, I wish there was something like this when I was raising my kids. And it's lovely hearing that kind of feedback from women too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's segue into a matriarchy versus patriarchy discussion.
Okay.
We talked about some concrete ways we are helping the matriarchy rise and feel empowered. But we do have this little bit of a push pull going on in our society now of power systems. So, Kim, when I say patriarchy versus matriarchy to you, like, what is that? What comes to mind, and how do you want to dive into this conversation?
I guess what comes to mind is that it's a time in which women women are really looking around and wondering who is going to actually step up and lead.
Mm,
We are angry at the way that decisions are being made, and whether you are talking about this from a political standpoint or a religious standpoint or an economic standpoint, a philosophical standpoint. Women's voices are out there, but they get oppressed regularly. And it's happening in such a sort of an up and down, left and right way right now that it feels like our sea legs are, really not underneath us. It feels like, what the heck? Are we really going backwards on this? Are we
mhm,
supposed to protect this? How do we protect this? And I don't really have all the answers. I'm not a professor of women's studies, although I definitely took enough, education at from the nuns in Catholic education to do so. But because I grew up in that institutional framework, I got a chance to see the patriarchy at work. And I was told a lot that, like, you can't change it if you're not in it. And I
mhm,
did try to change some things, and it really didn't matter. And that's where, looking at my own children and my own way of doing things in the world, is that I'm always trying to change it because it doesn't fit right with me. But what I realized is it wasn't built for me. And so
mm,
we need to build our own frameworks that work for us. And as an entrepreneur, and as a mother of daughters and sons, as somebody who is always been dedicated to women's education, what I think the missing piece was building a community for women to stand up and speak out. And that could be in all different ways. It's not like we have to be the activists or the fighters, although welcome, come on in. But it has to be all the types of women that we need on all the sides of the political aisles, the religious aisles, the institutional stuff. We need women to stand together and not fight against one another. And we need men who allow us to take up that space and be who we are. So I'm not a big believer in, like, women only, and screw the men. That's not. I'm running my father's business right now. I have brothers I do business with. I have a son. I'm married. My husband is great. I'm looking for true equality. I want to
Mhm.
stop having the conversation of why we have to have equality and just have the equality. And so, to me, the way that that occurs is by recognizing the way women actually work and leaning more into that and bringing it into the mainstream.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about this, that, the rise of the matriarchy sounds fabulous, right? Because the patriarchy is so oppressive. And you have this vision of, like, if women were truly running the world, would we be at war right now? Probably
Right.
not. And there's just a softness and an ease that comes in when we think about women holding the power that's been held by men for millennia. But that's not necessarily the right answer either, because again, we're just going into a different imbalance. And
Yeah.
so the true answer is to get to this egalitarian society. But in order to get there, women have to be lifted up so much more than they are. And men have to embrace the divine feminine, their their vulnerability, and they have to tone down their loudness, right? And so we can meet in the middle, and that sounds dreamy and it sounds impossible, but it really is where we need to get to. And I think we're not going to get there until men are able to embrace some of those concepts, which I don't know in our current society how we get there. I mean, obviously, it starts with the way we parent and how kids are brought up, but there's so many influences out there. Um,
Well, yeah, and I can only do so much. You can only do so much, but we
yeah.
can actually have more impact. And I mean, for me, it shows up in a lot of ways. Like, for me, the idea of this, the idea of this is that we just become people, right, who work together, and we don't have to worry about men versus women. We just are people, and everybody is accepted, and everybody can be their best version of themselves. And so, in the professional moms, we were basically lifting women up to their best potential. And you and I have seen this, literally seen this, that a woman will show up very quiet and meek at an event. She maybe has her hair a little unkept. She's maybe not dressed in a way that would, you'd want to like run up and work with her. And she's been brave enough to show up.
Mhm.
And one of us makes our way over and welcomes her in. And then the next time she shows up, she's got like a weight lifted off of her, and her hair is
Mhm.
combed, and she's got a smile on her face. And I'm not saying we don't all carry heavy burdens, but what we've seen is a transformation of women being seen and finding
Mhm.
their place. And then it turns out that because of it's International Women's Day to speak to, that what we're finding is women from other parts of the world who are in the US who are trying to find their place too, find us. And
Mhm.
that was really cool to see at our event on Friday, that the women who are just part of our groups are
Yeah.
the women we are highlighting and raising up to hear their stories and to share those things.
100%. And it's really beautiful. And I think what the women get when they come to our groups is a sense of, I'm not alone. There are others. They are doing incredible things. I'm inspired to create a community, to start a business, to write a book because I saw someone else do it. And I learned a little bit about how to get there. And I got the confidence boost to understand what it would take to get there. And it's really beautiful to watch, because we can't really become uplifted if we aren't in some kind of a community or support system. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard just to be on your own doing these things, right? It's the the beauty of community can't be understated.
Well, and you and I, at the head of the professional moms community, we are willing to be vulnerable and authentic and imperfect. And
Yes.
because we are willing to be that, because I'll wear my shirt inside out as I present to a group of business owners, or, forget my whatever, or just like we're gonna be us, and we're not perfect. We also allow for others to say, hey, if Kim can do it, if Tami can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And that is totally empowering. And we're empowered by the women around us and what they're doing. We constantly walk away from conversations calling each other and being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing what so and so is doing. We are building that space for women to find the way that they want to make their impact. And so
Hmm.
our ripple effect is a bunch of ripple effects. That part
Yeah.
seems really cool.
Yeah. And we saw it on our business retreat we just ran.
Oh, that was such an amazing retreat. I'm still like processing through it, frankly. I think we all are. It was transformational,
Yeah.
and up leveling in a way that was just really cool to see.
It was incredible. So we took 18 women to Florida for a 4-day weekend where Kim leaned on both her business coaching, but also her former life as a teacher, and stood in front of the classroom, created a classroom, and taught for 2 days straight on it was kind of business 101 on some things, like how to build a 30, 60, 90-day plan. But she took her time with it and really dug into different components of it, giving really thought provoking questions for them to workshop through, and then taking them into a worst case scenario exercise, which we didn't know what we were walking into with that. It was a meditation, a guided meditation, but broke open some really big things for women around their deepest fears. Some of them had just actually lived through situations that felt like the worst case, and then how to rebuild afterwards. So the transformational journey that we took these women through is just incredible. And what you and I have the ability to do is to create the containers to allow for the experiences.
Yeah.
And the women just need to step in, and we're here to guide them through.
Yeah, it's a ride. It was a ride.
Oof.
And I mean, I've taught this curriculum a lot in lots of different ways. And I knew that it was powerful. Um, I knew that clicking in with you and sort of the intuitive energy that we were building in the room
Mm-hmm.
was different. And I remember coming up to you and being like, okay, this I don't know how this next part's gonna go. Because I knew that I was gonna, I mean, I almost skipped it because I was a
Wow.
little nervous that it was a little too much. Um,
Yeah.
and then what happened was that I was perceiving something that wasn't really what was going on, but it was like we were kind of in like a transformational portal.
Right. Right.
And all kinds of things came out of it, breakthroughs and breakdowns and breakouts, and anybody who chose to actually engage in and ride that ride came out better for it,
Mm-hmm.
and have a renewed sense of energy around their ideas and their business, and that part just makes me so
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. And they were able to do it in the container of all the other women that were going through a shared experience, right? And so the collaboration and the conversations that emerged from it of how does this impact your business, this is how it shows up for my business, and all the diversity of the types of businesses we had. Spas, we had attorneys, we had therapists, we had
Bookkeepers,
nonprofits, we had bookkeepers. I mean, it was really,
remodelers,
yeah,
construction, right? Like
everything.
marketers. But I just want to say thank you, because that would not have happened without our friendship.
Oh,
And I know you
100%.
know that, right? I would
Yes.
have never done a retreat ever, because I just didn't have it in me. I did those things many moons ago, many chapters ago in my life, and I just kind of felt like I didn't have it in me to do that. And you talk about vision. So this is where your vision is really interesting is that you brought, you were like, hey, let's go to Florida. And it was a scouting trip of sorts.
Hmm.
And it was sort of like you were revealing to me the potential of this idea. But you had to get me in the environment because I was so, everywhere with, my bio.
Right.
Um, and so thank you for building that space for me to have the vision, because once I could see it, then I was like, oh yeah, we could do this. I just pull this out. And what's amazing and exciting is that's like one slice of my stuff. Like I
Right.
can't wait to do more. Like that kind of like broke open some things between our model that was like, well, I guess we've got
Yeah.
lots of things to dig into here.
And we just scratched the surface. Like this retreat, we brought in my associate coach Renata Stadel Gray, who led us through a strengths finder
Oh,
activity that was phenomenal, that we were
yeah,
definitely still referencing throughout the weekend. um, but we could have also done a core values exercise, and there was a whole bunch of content around that that we could lead next time. So like to your point, there's a lot of different ways we can take this, and
yeah.
we're already planning to see if we can pull one off maybe for September here locally in Chicago. So teaser alert on that, stay
Stay
tuned.
tuned.
See if we can pull that together. I'm working on it. But again, it gets back to creating these experiences, because the rise of the matriarchy will only come as women become more empowered and enlightened. And when they start to shed the limiting beliefs of what society has told them they are, and who they are, and what they're capable of, and what's something that a guy can do, not what you can do, right? And all of these things, that's what's going to rise. And we will only rise together, because matriarchs are all about community and connection. This isn't a solo thing.
Yeah.
And so we are creating those spaces for women, and it's super beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're a woman who just knows you have not yet reached your potential, and you're holding a baby on your arm and you're like, I'm never, ever going to get there, don't worry, you will. Just take your baby steps and give yourself the space to be the things that you want to be in life. And you will soon move into those phases and stages. When
Mhm.
I'm speaking to a room full of women about, like big ideas and stretch goals and going after things, I'm always like, if you're a new mom, this is not, if you have young kids, like be realistic about what you can do. Now, I wasn't a realistic person. I ran at those things. Um, but burnout occurs there, and a lot of guilt occurs there. And so it's better that you go in looking at a balanced state. And I think we're all there to help each other do that.
Right.
Somebody will cut your hair and hold your baby at the same time, or show up at your house and help you organize it, or put on a party for you, or there's just so many ways that women can help each other in this community that we've built. And
Mhm.
what's exciting is, I think the most exciting part is that there's women coming to us with ideas. Like you and I walked away from this event
Yes.
Friday with like 100 ideas, and then I checked in with you. You're like, all these women came to me with ideas, and then I checked in with Joy and Julie, and all these ideas, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, what did
Yeah.
we spark?
Yeah. Right. Because the creative energy feeds off of the collective, in a
Yeah,
really, really beautiful way.
yeah,
And I think the more we understand our strengths and how we're wired, we also have a better idea of what we're capable of taking on. So, one person's bandwidth limit is way different than another's.
oh yeah,
And it's really important to understand, and push yourself to your own personal comfort zone, of what, or push yourself outside your own personal comfort zone, but not to burnout level for sure. Since this is our episode on the rise of the matriarchy, I thought I'd share a little bit of backstory on our sponsor, Edie Boutique. Edie was founded by Amy DeGrazio. At 15, Amy got a job at Wade Shoes, where she proceeded to work for many years, eventually buying the shop when the owners decided to retire. She was only 25. Edie Boutique was named after her grandmother, Edie, who was always the biggest fan of Amy's retail career. 30 years later, and Edie is not just in Park Ridge. They have 8 locations, including Lake Geneva, Libertyville, Elmhurst, Geneva, Illinois, Valparaiso, Indiana, and Milwaukee, both in the third ward and Whitefish Bay. Their gift shop, Marigold, is attached to the Park Ridge and Lake Geneva, Libertyville locations. Marigold is great for everything from baby and wedding gifts to birthday gifts for him or her. I'll definitely be doing a bit of more shopping there as wedding season upon us, and I think I have 2 weddings in the next 2 months. Feeling so much gratitude for Amy and her support of this podcast. From one mother to another, here's to women lifting each other up. If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, reach out. I have single episode and multiple episode packages available. My social influence is strong and my reach is wide. I'd love to see how we can get your business featured. So one of the things that, as we're talking about matriarchy, you've inherited your father's business. So let's take a moment to talk about that and how that patriarchy shows up for you as now the matriarch of a business that was always very male dominated. And you're
Yeah.
walking into rooms and having conversations you probably didn't think you were going to do.
I mean, I was up for the challenge. So when I explain this and somebody's listening, they're like, "Why would you do that?" I had a desire to help my parents figure out what to do with their business. They had built it together since they were 21. My dad 100% owns it. That's another story for another day of the matriarchy, but versus patriarchy. But um, during the pandemic, it was clear my dad was starting to, want to retire to Florida, take his energy down a notch, and none of us kids had really been involved in the business, so we just didn't know much about it. So my brother-in-law and I kind of went in. I went in from a marketing perspective of like maybe I'll just help them update their brand and maybe put a website up if they need it. But really, what it was they had one big customer and they needed to diversify that if they were ever going to sell the business or grow the business or leave the business to somebody else. And so I spent the last 3 years kind of assessing, identifying, and then creating opportunities for growth, turning the business around and hiring the next generation of leaders, partnering with my family members, and really helping to turn the business into the future state that it is right now. Now, that being said, it is not without all of its ups and downs.
Sure.
But I, but working with family and friends feels the same as working with strangers who become family and friends. And there's breakups and there's undoings and there's uncouplings and there's difficulty on all those levels anyway. And so I feel personally very comfortable working within that. I'm the eldest daughter in the family. I'm used to kind of just being opinionated and loud about my feelings. And I try to think of everybody. I'm the diplomat. So I'm trying to be fair and I'm trying to make it make sense. But I would not say that I was ready for commercial bakery manufacturing in my training as an English teacher. Um, but if you want to know whether or not, that humanities degree at that private university got paid off, it did in the first 2 years of my first business. So whenever I hear that, stuff, I'm always like, those are probably your CEOs. Those are your creatives. Those are the people who are storytellers, thinkers outside the boxers. And we are the ones that will probably figure out how to pay our student loans off in 3 years. So you don't have to worry about that. And so I think that when I met you, I didn't really realize that a lot of like what I do in business and what you're doing in your coaching and your career business and life coaching business, that those were very aligned in many ways.
Mm.
that, you and Jess were really great to bring up. Jess Stokes, who's in one of your previous
Yeah.
podcasts, you brought up like, hey, you're intuitively doing some of these things. The things you're saying to people are intuitive. And what's been really great in that journey is that as hard as manufacturing, costing, and dealing with all of these things are, it's private equity, it's, banks, it's all of this stuff. I'm also really building this really, really cool, softer side that's easy and exponentially growing and burgeoning while I tackle this other thing and truly make it my own,
Mm-hmm.
and see if that will work. Just like the inner circle with my sister Joy, that's a co-ed network, but it's really, can two women lead a co-ed network and would men be part of it? And the answer
Mm-hmm.
at year 9 is yes, but it's not every kind of man.
Right. It's the
Right?
men that need to get closer on the egalitarian spectrum, right? Like that's
Yeah.
where they start. It's the men that are aware enough of it would be okay for a woman to lead a network and it would be fine and maybe it would be great and maybe it doesn't matter that it's a woman, it's just a good network.
Yeah. And it turns out, again, politically, religiously, institutionally, we don't have to always line up. But if you allow me to be me and I allow you to be you, and we can work together within that ecosystem, then we do have some core values that align.
Right.
And it is hard in these times to find that. And, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people drew a lot of lines there for themselves around business. And listen, if somebody misbehaves, I'm not interested in working with them. I'm not, I don't have time for that.
Right.
But I do believe that if I want people to respond to and honor my voice, then I should do the same for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So anything else regarding this topic that you wanted to crack into today?
I think just the main part of this is that we are feeling a really big pull to grow this.
Mm-hmm.
I really started running at this about 18 months ago, building this community with you. I've got big ideas on it. The transfer of wealth from men to women in these next years, there's a huge transfer of wealth, but it's a huge transfer of wealth to women. You
Mm.
have that data point coupled with that women are starting businesses faster than men, coupled with that women are graduating in bigger and bigger numbers and outnumbering men in law school, medical school. Like, we're seeing a rising tide that is turning, and and so it's time for everybody to push towards it. And
Mm.
that I don't know what that means for each listener, but I know that it means something. And if that means that you speak up at your work meeting, or you just don't let it go, the unfair thing go unfair anymore, or you quit the job where the manager is not treating people right, or you start your own women's group in your own area, like, find your way to make impact. That's the big thing I want everybody to take away.
I love that. And it really truly is the baby steps, right? We're not going to overtake the patriarchy in this massive way, right? It's the little baby steps of all of us being switched on to our calling, to our voice. I spoke at my very first city council meeting
I
last
know.
month. That was huge for me. And it's just constantly every day asking myself, where do I need to show up in ways that maybe I'm nervous to or I feel doesn't matter, right? And pushing myself a step further. What you and I feel with the Professional Moms Community Network, we feel intuitively guided to build this. There is a it feels like a wave at our back, just pushing, pushing in alignment. I really refer to it as a movement. It feels like something bigger. And so when you get those nudges, when you get those intuitive hits, and you say, oh, well, I have a friend and I could do that with, like, we're both on track. It's taking that leap. What's your favorite line?
Leap in the net will appear.
Leap and the net will appear. And leaning in, right? And just having the courage to fail, and to try and to show up differently and to challenge these status quos that feel like they're hard coded, but really they're toxic and unnecessary in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of old adages that aren't about us actually. And so, I speak to a lot of these, and it's another day, another dollar about sort of the way that women are told that we need to focus when we're integrators, or we need to,
Mhm.
like, be the best at something before we can consider ourselves at the top of the industry. Listen, own it, ladies and gents, but own it. I mean, and really get yourself to a place where you're okay with tooting your own horn, because nobody else is going to. And
Mhm.
I, I, I have found that I could stand there and be, well, we already know this. You could run for president and be the most qualified person, and you're still not going to get chosen. So, what do we do to make a difference in that? Is that we all have to collectively put our shoulders into it and move the needle forward in some way. And I'm doing this for my daughters and my son, and I'm
Mhm.
doing this for my grandchildren and maybe someday. But I'm also doing it for myself because I don't want to look back at this time where we were sliding backwards and we didn't just put some energy into this and push back.
Yeah. Yeah. There's generational healing that needs to happen, and there's work to be done.
Work to be done, but we are doing it. And if anybody's listening, the retreats that we're putting on are amazing. The finding the professional moms community network groups near you is amazing. Of course, reaching out to me about coaching at acceleratesuccessfully.com is amazing. But or checking out the Inner Circle Business Network. But what I think is really most important is just what are you gonna do today to make yourself feel empowered?
Yeah. Love it. All right. So everyone can follow up with you at acceleratesuccessfully.com. They can reach out to the professional moms community, which I'll have the URL in the closing remarks. And of course, the retreats. I'm happy to talk about those. Anything else you want to make sure our listeners know about? Any special or anything?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything
I
special you
was
want
like
everyone to know?
I was like, I want to do something special for Tammy's thing.
Aw.
Because we do, because first of all, I really believe in your podcast. I think it's amazing, and I'm so
Thank
glad you
you.
launched this. And I'm really happy that you're fully living into your own. And
Thank
I
you.
love to help people reach their best potential with their business, with their networking, with their life coaching. So Accelerate Successfully is available. And if you are listening in, and you email me and tell me you heard me on Tammy's podcast, I am happy to give you my Clarity course, which is a value of $250 for free, in
Wow.
my coaching package, which is usually part of the total amount. So you'll save $250. You'll get to take my online course, which gets you all organized and clear on what your goals are and where you want to go before you start coaching with me. And that, I think, is because I want everybody to know that if you've heard it here, you've gotten clear already on what you need to do, and you can come my way and we can put it into action.
Oh, thank you, Kim. That's so generous.
Yeah.
I love that. And your our next big event collectively, as in terms of an in-person event for those that are in the Chicagoland area or would like to fly in. May 7th, the Inner Circle has its summit. This is an annual event for all members to come together. There's a lot of motivational and inspirational content that gets delivered, as well as some really fabulous networking. So if you'd like information on that, reach out and we're happy to share. But other than that, Kim, I just want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Tammy. It's great. I can't wait to look back at this episode and do the remember whens.
I know. Oh my gosh. A couple of years, we'll see what this has really grown into. All
Uh-huh.
right. Well, thank you again for joining me today on the Intention Podcast. Be sure to listen all the way to the end to get an inspirational quote related to today's episode. If you're looking to bring more intention into your life, reach out so we can set up an exploratory call. Through retreats, monthly soul circles, and my one-on-one coaching, my programs and services can bring you back to a place of intention, allowing you to live a more switched on life. If you'd like to join our professional moms community that we talked a lot about in this episode, or maybe even start a chapter on your own, reach out at theprofessionalmomscommunitynetwork.com. And now for today's inspirational quote. In the end, matriarchy isn't the fear. Rather, it's the idea that women will define their own value and their own futures on their own terms, instead of terms men have laid out. Put differently, that each gender and each individual will have the power to determine their own destiny. And that is Anne Helen Patrice. Go out and look at the world through new eyes. Till next time.